Episode 1. In the beginning. Verbatim. It means in exactly the same words. This series does one thing. It quotes the Bible, word for word, from the King James Version. No interpretation, no commentary, no emotion. You will see the verses, you will see what they say, you will see what they do not say, and then you will decide. Episode 1. In the beginning. Genesis, chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 and 27. And God said, Let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. Genesis chapter 1, verse 31. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. Genesis chapter 2, verses 8 and 9. And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight, and good for food. The tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Genesis chapter 2, verses 16 and 17. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, Of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. Points of fact. Point 1. Genesis 1 verse 1 says God created the heaven and the earth. It does not say when. It does not say how. It does not say if anything existed before this moment. Point 2. Genesis 1 verse 26 says, Let us make man in our image. The text does not explain who us and our refer to. No other gods are named in Genesis chapter 1. The text does not say this is the Trinity. Point 3. Genesis 1 verse 31 says God saw everything he had made and called it very good. This includes the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which appears in Genesis 2 verse 9. It includes the serpent, which appears in Genesis 3 as a beast made by God. Point 4. Genesis 2 verse 9 says the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was planted by God. Adam and Eve did not plant it. They found it in the garden. Point 5. Genesis 2 verses 16 and 17. God commanded Adam not to eat from this tree. The stated consequence was, In the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. Point 6. What the text does not say. The text does not say why God placed the tree in the garden. It does not say God wanted to test Adam. It does not say Adam needed free will. It doesn't say God knew Adam would eat. It doesn't say the serpent was Satan. It doesn't say Adam and Eve had knowledge of good and evil before eating. The tree is named the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, implying they did not have the knowledge yet. Silent contradictions. Contradiction 1. The number of days of creation. Genesis chapter 1 describes creation over 6 days. Each day ends with, and the evening and the morning were the first day. The second day. The third day. The fourth day. The fifth day. The sixth day. But Genesis chapter 2 verse 4 refers to the day, singular, when God made the earth and the heavens. The text does not explain whether creation took 1 day or 6. Contradiction 2. The order of creation. Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 and 27. God created man after the animals on the 6th day. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7 and verse 19. God formed man from dust, then formed the animals, then brought them to the man to name. The text does not reconcile which order is correct. Contradiction 3. God alone, but speaking to someone. Isaiah chapter 45, verse 5 says, I am the Lord, and there is none else. There is no God beside me. But Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 says, Let us make man in our image. If there is no God beside the Lord, to whom is he speaking when he says us and our? The text does not answer. Questions for the viewer. Question 1. Genesis chapter 1, verse 31 says everything God made was very good. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil was made by God. It was placed in the garden by God. Eating from it brought death. Was the tree very good? The text says yes. But what does very good mean? Question 2. Genesis chapter 2, verse 17 says, In the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. In Genesis chapter 5, verse 5, Adam lived 930 years and then died. Did Adam die in the day he ate? The text does not explain why the stated consequence did not happen as written. What does the reader observe? Question 3. If God knows all things, and other verses in the Bible say he does, then he knew Adam would eat from the tree before he placed it in the garden. He placed it anyway. He gave the command anyway. The text does not explain why. What does the reader observe about this sequence of actions? Question 4. The serpent does not appear in Genesis chapter 1 or 2. It appears in Genesis chapter 3. It is described as a beast which the Lord God had made. The text does not call it Satan. The text does not say it fell from heaven. Where does the idea that the serpent is Satan come from? Is it in Genesis? You decide. This series does not tell you what to believe. It only shows you what is written. If you found this useful, subscribe for more episodes. Share it with someone who reads the Bible, or someone who doesn't. The next episode, the serpent speaks, Genesis chapter 3, the tree, the conversation, and the question, who told the truth? Verbatim, the Bible quoted, nothing more.